Evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening. Day 4. Day 4 already done. Oh, hello, Carl. Good to see you. Welcome back, everyone. Day 4, another new car out on track. The Aston Martin, although you would never think it was the Aston Martin if you looked at it, but a very, very, very different design than what others have put out there currently thus far. But the Aston Martin finally made its way out on track today, so we've got plenty of images and plenty of discussion around this newly inspired Aston Martin, now team principal, of course, of the team. Very late for you, Malin. Oh, well, welcome, as always. That's the great thing about these chats is that, of course, it's great to be live, but you can always listen back to them as well the next day. Evening, Els. Yeah, looks like the Batmobile. Yeah. I still think the McLaren car probably looks. I mean, I say looks best. It has the best testing livery. I do like the Ferrari livery still, though. That's still the best. Which they were back out there again. So we had a few teams back out there today. Well, many teams are back out there today. Red Bull and Mercedes have now wrapped up their testing for this week. They have done their allotted 3 days of testing that they're allowed to do out of the 5 available throughout the week. So they are done, and it was a strong end to the week for Mercedes, if you didn't know. Well, it's been a strong week overall for Mercedes, isn't it? To be honest, they look very, very good as the early season favourites. So we'll get on to them, though, because undoubtedly the topic of discussion today was Aston Martin. Even if all they was able to do was 4 solitary laps. Let's have a look at the lap times for today. And, well, you can see there that we had 9 different drivers out there today. We had 5 different teams: Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, Racing Bulls, Cadillac, and Aston Martin. And, well, once again, George Russell and Kimi Antonelli topping the timing screens and topping the amount of laps done as well. 78 and 90, although Ferrari very close there, 89 and 83 for them. So Ferrari impressing a lot of people as well here this week with the reliability of their engine and just generally the overall performance of them as well. Qualifying test run for Mercedes. Well, that is what George Russell did indicate yesterday. He said that they would be doing not necessarily pure outright qualifying runs, but he said they were going to do, they were going to run laps with the energy being deployed 100%, like full deployment, because they hadn't got round to that yet. And that just kind of really shows how far ahead they are probably of everyone else when it comes to their program, their test program. Because to do a 16.4, the quickest time we've seen this week, Kimi Antonelli a 17.0, and everyone else today, the next best was Charles with an 18.2, which we've seen a few drivers do low 18s, and Lewis Hamilton mid 18s there. Arvid Lindblad in the mid 18s, Oscar Piastri 18.4, Liam Lawson 18.8. And then Sergio Perez, Cadillac, still probably just going through systems checks. They haven't really pushed their car this week yet, Cadillac. And then Lance Stroll, only 4 laps. So Aston Martin got to the track today, but they spent all day putting the car together and making sure everything was running okay before they eventually got out there and did 4 laps, where it then eventually stopped out on track at the end of the day. Couldn't even get it back to the pit lane. So Lance Stroll in the car. Fernando Alonso was at the race circuit as well. But yeah, could have been a lot better for Aston Martin. They were already late. They're already late to this test week, shakedown week. They're not missing it entirely. They will get at least 1 full day of running tomorrow, you do presume. But yeah, still not ideal for them. What has happened to the sim racing videos? Unfortunately, Couch, I don't have as much time anymore. I have a little girl now, and she takes up a lot of my time in the evenings when I get home from work. Work has also stepped up in my day job. This, contrary to what you may believe, this isn't my day job. So yeah, as I've reiterated a few times this week, this is kind of a lot more casual for me, a lot more reasonable to do, and kind of feels like it's less time consuming and less arduous of a task to do. Just go live and chat F1. I find it a lot easier than the whole sim racing stuff. I still do the odd sim race every now and then, but yeah, I'm a lot more tired in the evenings now when I get home from work and after little ones put to bed. You think Lewis Hamilton is winning the title? Have that faith. You never know. You never know. Still too early to say. But with this Aston Martin, as you can see here, it looks like a Batmobile. There are some quirky elements to this Aston Martin that they've done differently than to others. And Matthew Summerfield is Summers F1. He is a friend of the Missed Apex podcast. If you haven't listened to their Tech Time episodes, he is on there. Brilliant. Former editor, tech editor for Autosport. So he has stated that there are a couple of quirky elements to this. So I'm going to preface this now, as I've said many a times before, I am not that adept at the whole technical side of F1. I have a base knowledge. I have a base knowledge of kind of what certain things can do. Mainly learning off of others who are a lot more knowledgeable in this area than me. So for me, I'm kind of just repeating here what someone who is a lot more well versed in the tech side of F1. That's what I'm doing right now. So he has stated here that the front wing pillars are dog-eared, mounted on the second flap, not main planed like Mercedes. Solo active aero element front wing. Underbite side pod inlet arrangement with massive undercut and downwash ramp bodywork. So the bodywork, the side pod element and the side of the car and the engine cover, this is what has really kind of raised a lot of eyebrows to people. And I'll get onto some terminology in a minute in relation to things that you may see on social media or just hear in general, and so that you have an understanding. Inclined upper front wishbones like the ground effect era. And then down here, this is a much better side angle, isn't it? Side profile angle of this currently blacked out Aston Martin. Yet to reveal their livery, which will be happening next week. Triangular airbox and super tight engine cover with massive mid-funnel outlet that releases into concave surface. Airbox horns like the MP419. Nui inspired a design, I think that was, wasn't it? Obviously need more images, but rear wing looks like it doesn't take up the full box region. So yeah, this car, so this kind of outlet here in the side pod area and these side pods here are what you call very aggressive. There's a lot going on. So you would have heard from maybe the Red Bull design, and you'll hear aggressive and conservative when it comes to designs. And really, what does aggressive mean? Well, aggressive means that there is a lot going on with the aero side of things. There's more parts, there's more sculpted parts. So the front wing will have multiple elements on it rather than just the single design that initially was in concept by the FIA. Similarly here, there's a lot going on with like the undercut here of the side pods. That's just the nature of them. This outlet here on the towards the rear of the engine cover, that's aggressive. It means there's a lot of time and effort that has gone into the design of this car and the development of it as well, with the whole manufacturing process. That's what is meant by aggressive. Same thing with the Red Bull, with the side pods being and the engine cover being very compact. That's aggressive, because anytime that you compact the car, yes, you can make it more streamlined, but at the end of the day, as we've touched upon before, you don't get anything for free in F1. There is always a trade-off. So you may gain something somewhere, but then by designing and implementing something in a certain way, but then that's going to result in more drag, more temperature issues, things like that. And that's what the zero concept is kind of about. So Red Bull have been aggressive with it because it doesn't always pay off. So when then you've got, say, more conservative designs like Mercedes, Ferrari, where they have much more wider side pods, less going on, shall we say, down the side of the car. Doesn't mean that it's not an intricate car. It just means that they're not going overboard. They're not committing to a design too early into this new set of regulations and driving themselves in, like pigeonholing themselves and leaving themselves cornered, i.e. what Mercedes did with the zero side pod concept in 2022 at the ground effect era, but then ultimately put them a year behind in development behind everyone else, because it took them a good couple of years to even understand their own car. But by then, everyone else was already a year ahead of them. So, yeah, that's what aggressive and conservative is. And this Aston Martin is definitely aggressive and doing things that other cars on the grid definitely haven't implemented. Maybe not necessarily thought about. They may have thought about them, but not implemented right now. But it seems like, the issue could be this Honda engine. There is rumours and that the engine in itself hasn't necessarily gone too well. Nui, rumours are that he wanted Honda to make the engine a bit more compact and more streamlined, more slim. And yeah, with that always comes its challenges. Hey, Dusko, good to see you, mate. Notice still no day 4 highlights. As for Aston Martin, I think all these features can't tell us a lot, like who's fastest, we'll see. Yeah, exactly. I was surprised, actually, there's no testing highlights yet. Maybe because Aston Martin were there today, and they probably want to wait a while before they show what they want to show of that Aston Martin. But yes, I did notice that as well. The testing montage, I said testing montages, the highlights on F1's channel of the 3 days thus far. They have done over 10 million views on YouTube alone. So this is why this test shouldn't have been private. Ultimately, it should have been open to the public, because there's plenty of F1 fans out there. We want to see these cars. So, but yeah, an interesting design. I did get other images of this car somewhere. That's the Aston Martin. It's a bit closer, but yeah, there's something to do here with the rear wishbone that they're doing differently. There seems to be, I think it's this element here where my mouse is. This part here is something that the other teams don't have, which seems to be interesting. So, as I said, way above my head in relation to my knowledge of things. I will do some more deep dives and some research on it, but don't expect any tech time videos on my channel anytime soon, because yeah, I'm not well versed in that as others. So good morning, Alan, good to see you. Stroll always ruining things. No, Stroll wasn't ruining things. Has Nui found a loophole in the 2026 design for Aston Martin? I mean, maybe, but as Dusko says, we don't know what these elements are going to provide when it comes to the pushing the car. So ultimately, they still need to get out there and do more than 4 laps, which is what they was able to only do today. So yeah, but it's definitely, these elements, of course, are going to be more profound, more detailed when they're not in black, when they're not in a carbon livery, when they're in the full green, the racing Aston Martin racing green. We'll definitely be able to see more, but I bet it's definitely raised some eyebrows up and down the paddock, because it is undoubtedly very different to those that we've seen thus far. You think Aston Martin will be strong this year? Well, it depends on the engine. I think they could be a dark horse, but it depends on that Honda engine primarily. We've seen the engine, we've seen the Honda partnership before in a new regulation set not get off to a good start in McLaren. Of course, different time now, but remember, they also were Fernando Alonso at that time as well. GP2 engine, which everyone likes to refer to. So, but yeah, some nice shots there. So I think what is quite interesting as well is the difference in the nose. So let's see if we can zoom in here. We can't zoom in, unfortunately. Let's see if I can open image in a new tab. There we go. Kind of. But this nose looks very bulky, doesn't it? The nose itself is very bulky in relation to what we've seen thus far on other teams. That's for sure. So that's interesting. I mean, it almost looks like it doesn't fit, if you know what I mean. Like, it looks like it's a bit disjointed from the rest of the car. The second element of the rear wing here, or the front wings here, are a lot smaller than what we've seen on others, like the McLaren as an example. But yeah, interesting. interesting designs. As I said, I'm not a designer. I'm not an engineer, so I don't know obviously how this all operates and the purpose behind it all. But yeah, no doubt there'll be some, and there's already been some analysis on this car. But as clearer images come out, when we hopefully get to see this car on track for a lot longer tomorrow, we will get some more well-versed people, a lot more knowledgeable people breaking down the components of this car and why they've gone in that direction compared to others. I think it's all black so you can't get a zoomed in shot. No, that's exactly the reason why. That's why they used to have camouflage liveries in the past as well. It's to make it difficult to pick up certain parts on the car. So don't make it feel insecure, Stuffeyy. It's a proper nose on that, isn't it? It's a proper nose. But good to see them there. So now the only team that hasn't run this week is Williams, which we discussed yesterday, who will be supposedly at Bahrain. We will see, though. We will see. Because if James Vowles' words are anything to take by, they haven't even put the car together yet. Don't even know how much it weighs. So, hey, Lister, good to see you. Welcome, everyone. So, we had a lot of cars on track today, as we mentioned. We had, this is just those of you who are joining again, what were the lap times today? Well, we had 5 different cars on track today. George Russell was in the Mercedes. He topped the timing screens. 78 laps. Kimi Antonelli, 90 laps. That is an obscene amount of laps for the Mercedes team in itself for 3 days of testing, and it seems like they went into maybe some quali modes today as well, which George Russell did allude to yesterday, getting used to the full deployment of these cars. So they're making very, very good progression. Of course, doesn't mean it's necessarily a good race car, just means that it's reliability. And their system checks are ahead of everyone else, and they can start thinking, they can start moving a lot more forward a lot sooner than maybe other teams up and on the grid. I say up and down the grid because no one knows which order we're all in at the moment. Charles Leclerc, Ferrari, once again, that power unit seems to be also very reliable. That's a good job. 89 laps for Charles Leclerc and 83 laps for Lewis Hamilton. Charles with an 18.2 and Lewis with an 18.6. We'll get on to Lewis in a second because he did have a moment today, which I was caught on camera, unfortunately for him. Oscar Piastri, he's getting his first laps in that McLaren with Lando Norris taken to the track yesterday. He did 48 laps. I'm surprised he didn't do more, to be honest with you. 48 laps is not that much. I thought he would have done a lot more. That's gone a little bit under the radar, especially if he was the only driver out there today, because there's no Lando Norris in the car. Arvid Emblad did 47 laps in the RB. Lewis Hamilton, we just touched upon. Liam Lawson in P7. I say P7, they're 7th. He set the 7th fastest lap with an 18.8. 64 laps for them, so good amount of laps for the ARB Racing Bulls there. Sergio Perez, still not really set any, I would say, I say quick lap times. We don't know what's quick and what isn't, but he hasn't set any lap times yet, the Cadillac, Perez, or Bottas, that is what is on par with even the Racing Bulls, the Ferrari, the Mercedes. Of course, brand new team, the only completely brand new team on the grid. What I mean by that is that they have come into the sport from absolutely zero. Audi did take over Sauber, so at least they've already had that in place. Lots of systems and elements would have been in place already for them, whereas Cadillac has had to start from an absolute scratch. So 66 laps though, that's not too shabby. So I think they've got one more day. I think Cadillac will be out there tomorrow, probably in Valtteri Bottas' hands. And then Lance Stroll only did 4 laps today, 1 minute 46. Did seem like they were just getting out their systems check, make sure everything was running after spending the whole day putting the car together. So those were the times. So let's head on to Lewis Hamilton, shall we? Absolutely love these front on images, by the way. I do like this look of this car. I really do like the livery. I know it's not to everyone's eyes, but I really do like it. You was going to ask about the blue light. That's just a choice. I don't think that's necessarily mandated. I think that's just a choice that they've decided to choose, maybe for the test. Will it be used for the actual testing? I don't know, but we'll see. Hey, Flo, good to see you, mate. Florian, good to see you, mate. Going to be Liam Lawson's last year in F1. Ooh, could be many drivers last year's in F1. Lots of drivers out of contract at the end of this year as well. Silly season's going to be interesting. Was it a fuel system failure for Piastri? Low laps? Maybe. I haven't really looked into it yet. We can have a look into it. That's interesting in relation to the fuel flow, and something that is interested in relation to the fuel in general, because something that has been a bit overlooked this year and hasn't been discussed about enough. Of course, everyone's talking about the new engines, the way the cars look so differently in the active aero. We are using 100% sustainable fuels this year. So it's a brand new fuel that is also going into these cars, that each team has their own fuel supply in relation to who provides that fuel. So Aston Martin has Aramco, we have Petronas from Mercedes, Shell with Ferrari, and the type of fuel that you have in the car massively impacts the performance of your engine. And this week, it has been vetoed, basically, that the teams could use non-sustainable fuels. So, rumour that I heard is that Aramco, Aston Martin, basically supplier, and one of their main sponsors or naming sponsors, was having difficulties with their sustainable fuel, and they kind of pushed for this change here this week. So that's information that we are not privy to, is whether or not the teams are using their fuel for this year, or whether they're using another type of fuel, which they are well within their rights to do. I would presume that if you have that sustainable fuel ready already, if that sustainable fuel that you're going to use for the season is available and suitable and ready for this test, why would you not use it at the end of the day? But that's also something to take in consideration, is that we don't know which teams, what fuel they are running, which is going to play a factor with the engine performance this year. Seriously though, I think changing an engine partner could be an issue because of the chassis. Teams were used to some measurements probably. What do I think? Yeah, changing the engine in this regulation set is going to be a very, very tricky task, and probably not doable, especially with the cost cap era as well. Imagine how expensive that will be to redesign the chassis to fit a new engine. To probably buy yourself. So you'd have to buy yourself out of the existing contract of your engine. Unless like they break a clause or something and you're able to get out of it. But let's say you've got to buy yourself out of that contract. Then you've got to pay for a new contract, probably at an increased rate because you've not done it at the start of the season. You're doing it at the start of the regulations. You're doing it later on. You're then probably also not going to be at the front of the supply chain because you're a new buyer. So there's detriment there. Then you have to redesign the chassis to fit the new engine, which costs money and time. Then you have to manufacture the new chassis and the parts around that new engine. It is a very, very expensive process, and I don't think it's probably possible in this cost cap era, really. It just wouldn't be possible. You have to commit to an engine and use it until the regulations change again. Who knows when that will be, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. But yeah, it'll be very tricky to change out of this current regulation set with the cost cap era because of the reasons I just mentioned. Do they really need 12 HP logos on that Ferrari? Why? HP are quite insecure, I think. I think they're quite insecure, and they've obviously paid a lot of money, haven't they? People do ask, why is the HP logo the colour it is on the car? Why can't it be changed? Well, it can be changed, but they've paid over 500 million for the contracts that was announced. That it was, I think it's 500 million. So it's a substantial amount of money to not have their logo changed on the Ferrari. But at least it does fit better on the Ferrari now from a side-on angle. But speaking back to Williams, sorry, just one of you mentioned Williams there. Speaking of Lewis Hamilton, well, while he did get 83 laps in today and actually got to drive this Ferrari for the first time in the dry. Yes, he has driven this car 2 times prior, once this week and once last week at Fiorano at the demonstration day when they revealed the car. He only got to drive it in the wet. So, but in the dry, it didn't go too well for him. Because Lewis here had a spin. Nice little 360 for him. But caught on camera, right at the perfect angle to catch it on camera. And it's interesting because we've seen a few offs, or heard of a few offs this week already. We have heard of Max Verstappen going into the gravel when he's out. Like, we've seen Lewis have a trip through the gravel, albeit in the wet. I think Charles has also had a little bit somewhere. We saw Isaac Hadjar crash as well. And the thing is that these cars are... The drivers have said there's a lot more torque in them. And the conditions here as well have not been great for warming up tyres. Let's be real. It's been a very cold Barcelona. Track temperatures down into the single figures. So it makes it very difficult to have the grip in the rears, and these cars don't have the downforce that they are supposed to have in the corners anymore. So combined with that less load on the car itself, that's not a corner. So that is I'm trying to think of what corner that is. Where is that? That's definitely the last sector. That's the last sector. So he's applying the throttle there. And that's just clearly the energy going into the rears, not having the level of grip that you expect to have in those rears, or there just isn't the grip that you expect to have in those rears there. And the car is going around. So this is something that the drivers are having. There's probably been a few more of these that we haven't been aware of. I do presume with, of course, the F1 having full control over the media at the moment and not showing. I mean, they said... We're not going to see these little offs, are we, or these little moments? 100% we aren't. I mean, they called Isaac Hadjar's crash the other day a little off. So he had a little off in the last corner, is what they said, and they didn't show any footage. And then everyone got to see clear still images of him in the barrier, rearwards, and of the video footage. Well, there wasn't video footage of him crashing, but obviously where his car was. So... Corner 10. Okay, so corner 10. So, yeah, definitely last sector. But it just shows that these cars are a lot more... You need a lot more patience with it on the rear. But we're never going to race... These drivers are never going to race in these conditions throughout the whole year. That is for sure. When we come to Barcelona next, it's going to be 20 degrees. Track temperature is going to be around 20 degrees, maybe even hotter. So, yeah, this is definitely... But it's a learning curve for them, of course, to see how these cars are reacting. Good to see everyone, though, by the way. Good to see everyone. Lewis needs to retire. Oof, you don't see any team wanting to sign him unless he makes some massive improvements. No, he's not going to leave. Ferrari is his career over and done with. He's not moving anywhere else after this. There's no... Why would you? Because he's not going to move to another top team because, yes, he is too old now. He's in his 40s. He's 41. And... Why? I don't know. Why would you want to... You'd want to go out on a high, ideally, of course. And that would be at Ferrari. End your career at Ferrari. Then driven for the three most historic teams in F1, arguably. Ferrari, Mercedes, and McLaren. And he hopes, of course, to have some success with Ferrari. And in his career, being successful, even if it's not a world championship, but if it's multiple race wins with Ferrari in this year and the coming years, he can retire. He will retire on a high, of course. So... Aston Martin has a problem. Well, Aston Martin were the problem. They couldn't get it on track today. They only did 4 laps on track. So yeah, that's Lewis Hamilton having his spin there. But the car does look good. He still managed to get 83 laps in. That's a considerable amount of laps. That Ferrari power unit is definitely doing very good. It'll be interesting to see if they push that unit some more tomorrow, like the Mercedes did with George Russell and Kimi Antonelli. A 1:16.4 for George and a 1:17.0. So they definitely turned the full deployment on and did some slow quali runs, shall we say, just to see how the car feels in that sense. So, yeah. So let's go to Adam Cooper, shall we? If you're unfamiliar with Adam Cooper, guys, he is a freelance F1 journalist. He has been our source of information this week. Very reputable guy. I highly suggest that you follow him. Has not missed a Grand Prix race since Japan 1994. Before Japan 1994. Last year, Qatar, he attended his 600th Grand Prix. Unbelievable. Currently on his 600th and first, which was Abu Dhabi. So, yeah, he is definitely someone who can be relied upon. So I highly suggest that you follow him. What was pole position last year? It was a 1:11.1, so 5 seconds off of pole position of last year. And we don't expect these. I don't think we expect these cars to be quicker than last year's cars. They were absolute beasts. The cars are quicker in a straight line. I think it was Sky Sports did say they managed to grab data from a source who said that George Russell was able to achieve 330 kilometers an hour down the start-finish straight of the Barcelona circuit. So I don't know what that is in miles per hour. I'm going to have a check. What is 337 kph in miles per hour? That's 209 miles per hour. That's fast, isn't it? Down the start-finish straight. So, yeah, these cars with the active aero, with that front wing dropping down and the rear wing opening, they are definitely going to be traveling very quick down the start-finish straight. But something that I've thought, something that has come to my mind is how safe are those cars to like race down the start-finish straight? So, like, if you move too dramatically with the DRS open, we saw, like, Gabriel Bortoleto. You move too dramatically with the DRS open, you're going to, like, lose control of that car in dramatic fashion. You're then removing downforce on the front element as well now. Like, you have to beat these drivers. I think you're going to hear it first, and I really hope it's not bad, but I think we are going to see maybe 1 or 2 crashes, a minimum 1 crash this year, where someone has the active aero deployed, they go for a move, and the jink is too aggressive, it's too quick, and they just lose downforce. And they go into a spin, and we see a crash on the straight. I think we could see, that's my concern. I really hope I'm wrong, but that's my concern, is that we're going to see one of those crashes this year. Yeah, I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. Are teams without a new engine supplier or new driver lineup in a better position? I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. I mean, new driver lineup and a new engine supplier. I mean, who's got a new engine supplier? So there's only really 2 teams that have got new engines. There's only 1 team that's got a new engine supplier, right? No, 2, sorry. No, 3. Sorry. You've got Red Bull. You've got Red Bull providing their own powertrain now with Ford. Then you've got Honda now with Aston Martin. And then you've got Alpine with Mercedes. I'm discounting Audi and I'm discounting Cadillac because Audi is a brand new outfit. Yes, it was formerly Sauber, but it's a brand new outfit. Their brand new engine, their whole shebang. And Cadillac, brand new team. They're with Ferrari, of course, using a Ferrari power unit. So, I mean, changing power unit can be a benefit to you. Alpine seem to be quietly going about their business this week. I think the first day wasn't particularly great for them, but the second day was a lot better for them, which was yesterday. They'll be out there tomorrow as well. I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. It could be a detriment to you, and it can also be a positive. Only time will tell. A good thing they increase the impact structure and the crash test for safety. So much to control on these cars. Is bound to be misjudgments, especially, as you say, with lower downforce. Exactly. It's one thing to be able to utilize these new elements when you're out there on track by yourself, or you've got an area track to yourself and you're just lapping to a delta. But when it comes to actually racing and the positions that matter, and there's dirty air impacted as well, impacting you, it's going to be interesting to see. You don't think the engine matters that much? I mean, the engine does matter for sure. There are specifications and regulations of dimensions of engines. Yeah, it's not so much the dimensions of the engine. It's about the whether they've been able to build the engine that can output the horsepower that is necessary for these new cars. Would that only happen if either one or the other is open? If they're both open, wouldn't the car be balanced just under less downforce? Not necessarily, no, because if you're reducing... So by opening the rear wing, you're reducing the amount of downforce you've got. By then dropping at the front, another front wing element, you're increasing your top speed because you're reducing drag. So you are, in effect, removing the amount of downforce that is applied on your car, and you're making it just quicker in a straight line. Now, if you were to move around corners, you need air. You need more air to be pressurized over your car. So to a certain extent, yes, you're still going to have an element of, you're going to have that air. The quicker you go, of course, the air is going to be pushing you through, so it kind of gets heavier. But at the same time, what you're going to have is that if you're in a slipstream of a car behind, you've already got a lack of downforce anyway, because the amount of air that is traveling over your car is much less dense. Then you're removing the little amount of air that you have by for the downforce on your car by lowering those front flaps and the rear wings. And then what happens when you pull out of the slipstream to overtake, and normally it's quite quickly as well. You're not doing it slowly, you're doing it like that. So that the guy behind can't really react as well. That's when you're then coming out of the slipstream, more air, denser air, and then that's when the car can then go round. So I hope I'm wrong, and I hope you're right, and yes, the car is more balanced and so forth, but I'm not an aerodynamicist, but that's my basic understanding of things, and I really hope we don't see crashes like that. So what is the new weights of the cars? I think is it 740? I'm looking right now. No, not quite. They've been reduced from 800 kilograms to 768 kilograms. That's the new weight regulations. So they are lighter. They're slightly smaller and slightly lighter. We'd like them to be light, even more lighter and even more smaller, but at least they do look like that on the eye, don't they? You think the last team to win from scratch was Brawn? It would be, probably. Yeah, I think so. A lot of doodads on the steering wheels, eyes, front, hands at 10 and 2. Yeah. So let's have a look at what Adam has said here today. So Oscar Piastri got out the car, got into the McLaren for the first time today. Looks very good, doesn't it, that McLaren with that shadow livery. That's what I'm calling it anyway, a shadow livery. And you can see here, obviously, the front wing, extra front wing element here that a few of the teams have opted for. But then kind of a traditional side pod design here. So yeah, the McLaren. I think people who are underestimating the McLaren do so at your peril. Do so at your peril. Remember, this is the team that introduced those phase change materials last year with the brake calipers that other teams weren't able to replicate, which helped them dominate and look after their tyres for in such a good condition last year. That is not something that they are going to completely discard heading into this season. So that could be a massive advantage for them, unless the other teams are able to replicate that as well. But Adam Cooper here reports that Oscar Piastri did have a fuel system issue today. So yes, confirmation there. Well done who picked that up earlier. I missed this. That's why he only did 48 laps. There's a lot of challenges this year up and down the grid, so it was good to get stuck in, Oscar Piastri says. We had a fuel system issue, which cut our day short, but the team's working hard to get that fixed and back out tomorrow. These cars are completely different to what we've had in the last few years. That's part of what this test is about. We've already identified a few things that we can try to improve on the car to make it feel a bit nicer. We have one more day of running tomorrow. We'll continue to get used to the car and get a good read on how the different things feel. Then we'll find a good direction to make the car quicker and feel nicer. So McLaren having issues there with the fuel system issue. So is that a fuel system issue in relation to the fuel that they're using in the car? I don't know which fuel supplier they are using. But yeah, going to be very, very, very important this year, the fuel. Probably won't be discussed about enough, but could hamper, could really make the difference of whether a team is successful this year or not. Whereas the Aston testing livery, their testing livery is just black. It's that. So we need to count our lucky stars we even saw Aston this week. I wonder, Harry Clear, you say, I wonder if the flick between on and off will be quite sudden. Big change compared to last year. Do you think it will make the cars more unstable to switch on and off active aero? Not so much so. So the active aero has been confirmed that it will disengage as soon as you lift off throttle or if you touch the brake. So similar to the DRS would deactivate if you did the same thing, if you lifted off a throttle or if you touch the brake. So that is when the active aero will disengage. Of course, you can decide to manually turn it off as well if you wanted to. Same thing with DRS. You don't have to keep it open all the time if you don't want to. So in that regard, it's not. I don't think we're going to see mistakes like that. We will see maybe mistakes in the deployment of active aero, maybe with drivers maybe not implementing it soon enough. Of course, the straight line mode can only be activated in certain zones. And then if you're 1 second behind, there'll be designated boost mode zones. That's what's replacing DRS effectively. So, yeah, I mean, I think the active aero overall, look, everyone's going to have availability to it every single lap. It's not like DRS before where it was only if you was within 1 second of the car behind. And I think we will probably... I mean, I think really the active aero is something that we'll probably start to disregard quite soon. And what active aero will actually make interesting is how the cars are set up, how the teams will set up their cars. So as we discussed yesterday, for those that didn't tune in, what the active aero is going to make interesting is that where we've previously gone to circuits like Monza and Spa and Monaco, where they've required certain downforce level packages. So Monaco would have, you require the most amount of downforce that you possibly want. Big rear wings. It's not about top speed, of course. Impossible to overtake there, but it's all about downforce and cornering ability, right? So you want the highest rear wings that you can because it's not about top speed. Spa is different. You have to make a conscious decision as to whether you aim for top speed and still retain some cornering ability because the middle sector is all corners and much tighter. But the overtaking spots are on the first and last sector where you're at full throttle for 70% of the lap. And that's where Max Verstappen was able to beat the McLarens this year and challenge them in that sprint race. Fell a bit short in the overall race itself, but he ran a much lower downforce setup than the McLarens, who aimed to get on pole position, which Oscar Piastri did. But because of the nature of the dirty air and so forth, and because of that top speed that Max Verstappen had, even though the McLarens were much quicker in the corners, Max had the advantage in the primary overtaking zones down the straights, was able to get into the lead, and then Oscar couldn't regain that position. And then Monza, we see obviously the low downforce specs, the skinny rear wings, because it's all about top speed, and you have to sacrifice the cornering ability, which you still need to some extent on a few corners at Monza, the two Lesmos, Parabolica. But the active aero is gonna negate requiring to have those skinny rear wings that these kind of, I believe to a certain extent, these extreme downforce specific packages, because you'll be able to stick it in straight line mode. So at Spa, as an example, no doubt there will be a straight line mode zone, because there's going to be more than just one of them on circuits. There'll probably be 4 or 5. And Spa undoubtedly will utilize that. And you won't need that medium to low downforce setup there. You'll just be able to run maybe quite a high wing, increase that cornering ability that you have in the middle sector, and then it's negated by obviously the active aero that you have in the in those zones, in those normals, in those zones where you'd normally want that top speed. But because of the active aero, you don't, and which is available every single lap, you won't need it. So similar to Monza, similar to Monaco as well. So it is going to be interesting to see how the teams approach it and set it up. And there's, from my understanding, there's no set specific like rear wing level. So the teams can still bring new rear wings and new wing levels and so forth to each circuit that they want. They don't have to. There is no mandatory locked in stock wing level for this season, as I understand. So that's why I think active aero eventually it won't be a real topic of conversation. It's going to be about how the drivers manage the harvesting, the battery usage, the boost mode, whether they even have the boost, the full boost amount level available to them, if they're within 1 second as well. So that's where really this racing is going to be decided, not so much the active aero. But it's interesting from a setup perspective. That's how I think it's going to play out anyway. VRS has really got stuck since it was implemented. Why are people so worried about it getting stuck? No, not the rear wing getting stuck. I think it's more so like the front wing, maybe. The front wing. And of course, the teams, if you didn't see it in the wet on the other day as well, Lewis Hamilton in particular, it was shown that they can decide to lock the rear wing, the FIA. So in the wet conditions, you only had the front wing being able to open. So they have the ability to completely shut off active aero or partially shut it off if they want, depending on the conditions and things. So because it's the front wing opening, that's more dangerous. Yeah, true. How long do I think will the gaps be between P1 and P20? Be like ground effect era, 20 seconds, etc. I really don't know. It's so difficult to tell. It's difficult to tell. I mean, I hope the gaps aren't large. It wouldn't surprise me if there are some big gaps to start off the season, or at least in this first season with the introduction of Audi and Cadillac. But I hope that the FIA will stay on top of the regulations. They'll make the necessary changes to keep the racing close, and ultimately don't allow the engineers and the designers to go Pete Tong, to go ham on these cars and overdevelop them. That's what happened in the ground effect era, is that they just allowed them to... The whole ground effect era was introduced to reduce the amount of dirty air. We got that in the first season, and then unfortunately they allowed the teams to just go happy, pretty design happy, and create all of this outwash and create more dirty air. And unfortunately we got, yes, it helped create the fastest F1 cars we've ever seen, but provides some of the most boring races that we've seen in F1 history. So hopefully they stay on top of that. Is there going to be a new rule book? What, driving racing standards? There is supposedly going to be changes to that. I am keeping a keen eye. Of course, you know I love a racing regulation. You know I love the racing standards. I will be doing a deep dive on those when they are eventually released. But yes, there is supposedly changes going to be made to the racing standards. Or racing guidelines from last year to this year, especially after the numerous complaints that were made by the drivers last year due to this ahead of the Apex rule. So hopefully, with cars that are slightly smaller, with better visibility, we will see the racing guidelines be a bit more reasonable. So let's see. Right, F1 highlights are out for today. Are they now? Are the F1 highlights out now? Are they? Okay. I can't watch them on stream, unfortunately, because, I mean, I could probably risk it, but I don't want to get copyright strikes. You know what it's like. You know, especially F1 as well. There's not really too much to break down. Oh, was it Kimi Antonelli's birthday today, was it? It seems it was Kimi Antonelli's birthday. Let's see. Did they show Lewis Hamilton's spin? They probably won't show Lewis Hamilton's spin. Ah, they have shown the Aston Martin. So be interested to hear that Honda engine. They stick a lot of loud music over it as well, which also doesn't help with copyright reasons. But yeah, go check that out, guys. I mean, look, 34,000 views in 11 minutes. I mean, people definitely want to see F1, don't they? They definitely want to see F1. But these are all the cars that we saw today out on track. We saw the Mercedes, which have now completed their testing for this week. Actually, no, we didn't see the Audi. Sorry, we haven't seen the Audi today. They'll be out there tomorrow. They've struggled this week, Audi, haven't they? They have definitely struggled with their power unit, that is for sure. And then Mercedes again. I really do like that angle of the Mercedes. That's a great shot. A great shot. The Red Bull we've seen. They're done now, I believe. Are they done? No. Red Bull have got tomorrow. We're not sure if they're even going to get out there tomorrow, Red Bull, after his crash. So this is the element. This is the Aston Martin here, I think it is. Is that the Aston Martin here he's saying? Better look at the Aston Martin's rear suspension. Seems to be different from the rest. Here it is compared to a few other rivals. So it was this element here, I think. I think it's this one here. But it looks different. It's connecting different compared to the compared to the McLaren. Do I think the guidelines will be fixed and more transparent to the fans rather than previous years where all the penalties are random? So, they, in fairness, became a lot more transparent last year with their decision making. They made the racing guidelines public to us, whereas previously it was private, as well as the penalties as well, and what constituted what level of penalty. So I think that was a good decision by them, and I appreciate them from releasing that, and it definitely gave us some understanding as to why certain decisions were made. However, were those guidelines interpreted correctly by the stewards last year? No. They, in my personal opinion, I think there were some instances they were, and some that they most undoubtedly wasn't, and that's where we got a lack of consistency. And that primarily also comes down to the fact, as we've continued to harp on about, and I will continue to harp on about as a massive fan of F1, is that we do not have consistent stewards. We have a consistent kind of pool of stewards that are used throughout the season, but we don't have the same 4 stewards turning up race weekend from race weekend. And that, unfortunately, that doesn't provide a level of consistency of stewarding, of implementation of the rules. Now, look, if that's the problem, and that's the problem really, is that the drivers don't know what is acceptable. Something is acceptable one week, and then the next race weekend it's not. And even as fans, that's very difficult for us to follow as well. And we just want a level of consistency. Ideally, in an ideal world, the guidelines are used to the best of their ability. They're still guidelines. A form of common sense still needs to be used with them. And I think there's been some instances last year where common sense was, the guidelines were followed literally black and white as they are written down, rather than a bit of common sense and looking at the actual incident as itself. Oscar Piastri's one comes to mind, and they took kind of snapshots in the moment of that, and as per like the guidelines, but exactly what they are, they're guidelines. So consistently inconsistent, yeah, basically. That's pretty much what it is. So it made for some good content last year to break down what the stewards were thinking and how I would do things differently. But yeah, until the stewards until we have a consistent stewards panel, even if it's like, say, 6 guys that are on rotation, because you know that there's going to be a panel of stewards. There's normally a panel of 4, I think it is, each race weekend. So at least you know that, like, look, if one, I mean, they still should be entitled to holiday pay and stuff like that, you know, or if they're ill, someone else is able to step in. But at least, like, they're consistently stewarding race weekend from race weekend. It's the biggest motorsport in the world. It has some more eyes on it than it's ever had been, and we need that for the integrity of the sport. So yeah, but that's enough of stewarding. You got a bunch of old farts in control handing out penalties for the dumbest things. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't even. Do they? I think I've said this before, but I'm not entirely sure if they even go through a proper stewarding coaching course and stuff. Like, I don't think there's a proper accreditation that they have. They're normally kind of got previous racing experience or racing pedigree and so forth, but doesn't necessarily mean that they're able to analyze things correctly, you know? But anywho, but yeah, the Aston Martin definitely looks very different. Some images here of the rear. Not entirely sure what I'm looking at, as I said. The thing that does interest me is the side of the car, the side pod, and the engine cover does look very aggressive in its design. As you can see here, you can't really see it from this angle, but this is like a definite outlet to probably like a corner element. No doubt some aero implementations there. So yeah, very, very interesting. What has Newey cooked up there? Of course, it's not all just Newey. It will be him and his team. So obviously he's the figurehead now as the team principal. So, and only very few of them are ex-drivers, unfortunately. Well, the thing is that I don't even think just because you're an ex-driver doesn't necessarily mean you'll make a good steward. Some of them aren't analytical. Some of them aren't very good at breaking down incidents. Just because you're an ex-driver doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be good at looking at incidents and breaking it down and relating it to the rules. Some drivers aren't like that. What you need are people who know what the rules are, also have an element of common sense, and can look at what's going on. But yes, also to a certain extent, follows the sport enough and understands the sport and understands the driving element and what drivers are going through in that moment of time to understand, okay, was that just a racing incident? Was there was there any intent there and things like that? Of course, intent is always quite difficult to prove in F1, but for the most part, you can normally put yourself in people's shoes and know what they are thinking in that time. So they're part-time employees, yeah, they're not full-time. So, but yeah, so that is that. Anything from? So let's move that up there. But I'm very much liking the way that these cars look. Very much liking the way that these cars look. Right, so let's move up to what else Adam has said. So, Andrew Chauvelin, he is the Chief Technical Officer at Mercedes, as they've now completed their 3 days of testing. He says from a reliability perspective, it's been a good week for them. No shit, Sherlock. It's been a very, very good week for them. The car has enabled us to run the program exactly as we wanted each of the 3 days, and that's what we hope for coming here to Barcelona. It is a huge testament to the hard work of everybody at Brackley, bringing the car to life. We've also made good progress with some of the challenges we saw on days 1 and 2, and that's pleasing. That said, in Barcelona, we have only really focused on proving out the W17. In Bahrain, we will switch to set up exploration, which you can't do here when it is so cold. That will give us a better idea of the car's relative abilities as we progress towards the 2026 season. So, already done and dusted. They are already done and dusted. Mercedes, very, very good progression from them. Is there anything else that's come out? No. I'll see if I can find any more information on the testing today. F1 makes $27 million a year from Formula 1. Why aren't F1 invested in stewards and making sure that everybody is singing off the same hymn sheet? That question is the one that we all want answered. I'm going to touch on something here actually as well. I'm going to say, right, it's because they're greedy buggers. FIA, at least anyway. The FIA are the governing body that manages the regulatory side of F1. I'm surprised Liberty Media haven't at least pushed for it. However, there was news that came out recently about the FIA and their charity. And there is an article on the BBC here that, shock horror, Mohammed Ben Sulayem is up to some shady shit again. Anyone who's watched this channel, if you are new here, you will know I'm not this guy's biggest fan. And a charity watchdog has opened an inquiry into the FIA Foundation. The UK's Charity Commission has launched an official inquiry into the FIA Foundation road safety charity following claims by a senior politician that its independence has been compromised. No. The FIA's independence has been compromised? You're kidding me. That comes as an absolute shock. Unbelievable, Jeff. Never. The inquiry comes after the former NATO Secretary General, oh my goodness, George Robertson expressed concerns to the Commission about FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem becoming chairman of the FIA committee. You even got NATO getting involved. Oh my goodness. The Charity Commission, which regulates all charities in England and Wales, has issued a temporary protective order preventing the FIA Foundation and its trustees from entering into certain transactions without the prior written approval of the Commission. Robertson, now Baron Robertson, oh my goodness, former chair of the FIA Foundation, he said, I notified them that the changes that were taking place were compromising that degree of independence that had been guaranteed by the statutes. The FIA Foundation is a remarkable organisation with a huge reach into the world of saving lives on roads, and its strength is based on its independence from the FIA itself. So if the independence is being compromised, as it seems, then this will affect the efficiency and the effectiveness of the highly valuable Road Safety Act internationally. Wow. So the FIA Foundation controls 433 million euros, 500 million euros and 433 million pounds, which it distributes to fund road safety projects around the world. I wonder why it wants to regain control of the FIA charity. I wonder. It was set up by the late FIA president Max Mosley as a repository for the money paid to the FIA by F1 management, then controlled by Bernie Ecclestone for the so-called 100-year deal for the commercial rights to F1. At the time, FIA was paid $313 million for the rights to F1 until 2110. The foundation has increased its holding through investments. Ben Sulayem was appointed the chair of the foundation following the removal last October of former chair David Richards, the head of Motorsport UK. Chief Executive Officer Sir Saul Billingsley and Company Secretary Jane Pierce have also been fired. So Ben Sulayem just goes in and gets rid of anyone that says no to him. He is a dictator. He's an absolute dictator, and unfortunately, we are stuck with him as the head of the FIA for so long, and he's even pilfering off the charity money. So good on him being investigated, because he isn't going to be FIA are a law unto themselves, and it's no use them investigating themselves. So it's about time someone externally was able to investigate him. But hey ho. Yeah, not his biggest fan, guys, by any means. Him, but hopefully he stays away from the sport and just lets it be. So yeah, but that is it for today, really. Not too much else to discuss. I don't really know what happened with Sergio Perez today. Let's see if I can find some information out about Sergio Perez. So let's see if I can find something about Sergio Perez. What happened to Sergio Perez? Where is it? It's been very quiet on the Cadillac front, you know. Which isn't a bad thing. Just they can go about their business and just crack on. I can't really find anything at the moment. Can't really find anything about them. But Adam Cooper, there was something actually which Adam Cooper posted, which was quite interesting, with Miami. There's a reimagined marina hospitality area at the Miami Grand Prix. He's been told that the MSC Yacht Club will deliver elevated luxury, immersive design and unrivaled hospitality. The 5 decks of a lifelike super yacht will offer incredible views of up to 5 turns. Look at that. Cannot zoom in more. That's what we all want, isn't it? Look at that. For those who are listening to this on audio only, have a look at the YouTube screen right now. I mean, that looks a lot better than the fake marina. I will admit. That looks a lot better. So, how many teams will there be tomorrow, Carl? Tomorrow, we should see all of it on dry land as well, yeah. So tomorrow, we should see... So the only 2 teams who completed their run-in today was Mercedes and... No, it was Mercedes. Mercedes were the only team that completed their run-in today. So we should see Ferrari, McLaren, Racing Bulls, Cadillac, Aston Martin, Audi, Red Bull. Did I mention Red Bull already? Are Racing Bulls done? I don't think Racing Bulls are done. Did they drive yesterday? I don't think they. If they drove yesterday, then Racing Bulls are done. But I think Red Bull still have one more day, but we don't know if they will be at the track tomorrow because of the crash that Isaac Hadjar had. They weren't entirely sure if they had enough, if they'd be able to have the parts available to repair that car and worthwhile putting it out there again. But of course, Max has only had one session in the Red Bull thus far, and that is in a wet conditions as well on Tuesday. So not ideal preparation for Max Verstappen. Ideally, yeah, I'd love to have it. So I have to bring my Bermuda shorts and check it out for my fans. And if I ever get the opportunity, yeah, too right, I'll be there. So yeah, that's latest news, and that is basically it. Yeah, so nothing really else to report on. I believe the Cadillac has been quite quiet, the reporting there. I don't think there was any issues with the RB. There was no issues with... I don't think there were many other issues out there, to be honest with you. Cadillac didn't get as much lap timing as I thought, but still 66 laps. I don't think I heard of any red flags and that, but the big news, of course, was the Aston Martin finally getting out there. And it'd be interesting to see what this car looks like in racing green, eh? Because there's a lot going on here. Is that Fernando Alonso there? That is Fernando Alonso, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, that's Fernando Alonso. Of course. Was it ever in doubt that Lance Stroll was going to get the first drive of this car out on track? Anyone who thought Fernando Alonso would, you're kidding yourself. Dusko, when did teams like McLaren get the engine info from Mercedes and started building their chassis around it? Our engine's exactly the same for both McLaren and Mercedes. They will be, yeah. How you design your car around that is entirely of your own accord. When they would get those designs, I couldn't tell you. But yeah, there'll be obviously the contract that they signed will have everything covered in relation to what the quality of the engine that they're getting, when they get the designs, like all of that. And if they don't get them within a certain time period, like they'll get a program basically, and if they don't get them with a certain time period, then they'll be entitled to compensation. And yeah, it'll be a very long contract, but I can't tell you exactly when those designs would have been given to McLaren and readily available to start building around. Do we think Hadjar's crash has already put it on the back, put the Red Bull team on the back foot because they have lost out on valuable track time? I would say if they didn't have the... I mean, yes, to an extent, because you're still like a full day behind if they're not able to get back out on track tomorrow. Yes, it's not ideal by any means. But it's also not the worst thing in the world. I guess the thing is that... look, as good as Isaac Hadjar is, I like Isaac Hadjar. I think he's got a very promising career ahead of him. And I think him moving to Red Bull this year is a good decision for him and a good time to move. But you ultimately haven't got feedback back from your number one driver, your four-time world champion, the driver who was voted the best last year, who is arguably the best driver in the world at the moment. You have been unable to get probably sufficient feedback from him because he was only able to drive that car for not many laps in the rain. You want him to have a full day in that car. You want his feedback. And Max is very meticulous as well. He knows what he wants in a car. He knows how a car should fit, how it feels, what needs to be changed in a car to affect that. And of course, he also needs to become accustomed to these new systems as well. So it definitely wouldn't have helped them for sure. But they are fortunate that there are still 6 more days of testing in Bahrain coming up. So why isn't Max out racing? He's racing online, but he's not out racing. There's no confirmation if Red Bull will be there tomorrow. I don't think they've packed up and gone, but there were concerns, and this is kind of what Williams' reason is for not turning up at Barcelona, is that They felt that they could put a car together for Barcelona, but they wouldn't have enough spare parts. And that seems to be the case probably for Red Bull, is that it's still early on in the development here. Of course, yes, we've only got a month left till we go to Australia, but they wouldn't have flown out so many parts, so many replacement parts and spare parts just for this shakedown this week, because they would have had a very set. They would have come out here and gone, well, guys, we don't expect you to crash because we are here to just do systems checks, figure out how the engine works, figure out that the electrics work, that the active aero works, like all these things, the deployment. It's an opportunity for you guys to get accustomed with how it feels out on track and stuff and get a head start there. But we're not here to push. That's not what we're here to do. And Isaac Hadjar's crash has really upset the apple cart there. Now, we still don't know the reasons for that. Was it driver error? Was it a case of there was a deployment issue? Too much deployment maybe deployed to the rears of the cart. I mean, it is a corner where you can see crashes at the last corner as well. It was in wet conditions. So, but we don't know. We don't have that information. Someone has added up the laps so far. Mercedes 500 laps. Ooh, is this the Mercedes overall? Or is this a Mercedes in? Oh no, it's just Mercedes overall. 500 laps for them. Racing Bulls 319. Ferrari 290. Jesus, blimey. Haas 196. Red Bull 185. Alpine 185. So Ferrari are racking up a fair few, aren't they? They go out tomorrow. They're probably going to rack up another 180 laps, maybe 160 laps. So that will take them to near 500 as well. That's good for Ferrari. That's good for Ferrari if they do that tomorrow, of course. Dusko, why does George Russell have the lowest quota on Bet365? I haven't seen Bet365 for his odds. His favourite from everywhere that I've seen thus far, George Russell, when it comes to odds. Alpine flying under the radar, quietly running well. Yes, true. I've said that, yeah. On Monday, they had a couple of gremlins, but seems to have sorted them out. Them moving to Mercedes is definitely the right step for them, and that's what Williams will be thinking as well, is that the only positives they can really take out of them missing the shakedown is that the power unit they're using looks to be very good. So, yeah. But that is it for me, guys. I don't think there's too much else to discuss for today. Aston Martin will be live again to round off this shakedown week. I've been enjoying going live these evenings, guys, and just chatting F1. I love it, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it too. And whether you've been listening back the next day during your working day, or whatever it is that you may do, I hope you've enjoyed listening to these chit chats as well. But yeah. Aston Martin, hopefully we'll get to see them fully out there tomorrow. Fernando Alonso, no doubt, will be in the car. Red Bull, it's going to be a busy day tomorrow. It is going to be a busy day. So there'll be a lot to run down. People will be giving hopefully we'll get some more information, some more relative information from the drivers as well about these cars. And I think it is going to be a dry day tomorrow. So it should be a busy Barcelona circuit, and we will bring you everything that happens, the important information anyway, to round off this first shakedown before we then head to we'll have a few more car reveals next week, and then we head to Bahrain for the first test. So have a lovely rest of your Thursday evening, guys, wherever you are in the world, or your morning, your Friday daytime, because I know for some of you it is already Friday, and you're enjoying a nice probably bacon sarnie, sausage sarnie on a Friday to start your last day at work or your early weekend. But yeah, thanks guys, have a lovely day wherever you are, and we will see you tomorrow for the last day 5 of this Barcelona shakedown to start off 2026. We'll see you then. Bye.